Welcome to episode number 195, where I'm speaking with Acharya Shunya about her latest book titled Sovereign Self, where she shares the ancient texts of the Vedas and helps us to emancipate ourselves from restrictive belief systems and discover our true nature so that we can be the king or queen of our own domain. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a new private community away from social media on my new website, Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Now, this community provides a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, and to support each other. And I have many other perks in this community as well, so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab in the menu. I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth connection and conversation over there. And now, here's the show. This episode is sponsored by Kerala Ayurveda Academy. Do you want to lead a more holistic life in tune with nature and inspire those around you? Deepening your study of Ayurveda can help you to achieve this and so much more. Study of the Vedas is like a roadmap to uncovering your true self. Ayurveda not only supports your health, but it also addresses all aspects of your life. You have a unique life purpose or dharma, and learning Ayurveda can help you to align with it. Kerala Ayurveda Academy is a full-spectrum Ayurvedic company with deep roots in India, offering education, wellness, and herbal products. You can study online or in person and train in awe-inspiring Kerala, India, the birthplace of these ancient traditions. If you'd like to deepen your study in authentic teachings from Ayurveda, visit keralaayurveda.us to learn more. That's keralaayurveda.us, and you'll also find the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today I'm honored to welcome back Acharya Shunya, who is an internationally renowned spiritual teacher and scholar of nondual wisdom, Advaita, and an award-winning and classically trained master of Yoga and Ayurveda. The first female head of her 2,000-year-old Indian spiritual lineage, she has dedicated her life to the dissemination of Vedic knowledge for the spiritual uplifting of all beings. She is the president of the Awakened Self Foundation with its international headquarters in California, and the author of best-selling book Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, which became one of the top 10 books in alternative medicine in 2017. In her latest book, Sovereign Self, Acharya Shunya shares a comprehensive guide to yoga's most influential sacred texts, the Vedas, making their profound teachings both accessible and immediately practical for modern seekers. With Sovereign Self, Acharya Shunya shares a groundbreaking guide to the wisdom of the classic texts so that each of us may emancipate ourselves from restrictive belief systems and discover our true nature, that which is always whole, joyful, free, and ultimately sovereign. Acharya Shunya, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Likewise, I always enjoy our conversations. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's beautiful to have you here, and I have really enjoyed your book, Sovereign Self, and I'm so happy that we get to dive into this today. And I'd love to start the conversation. What does sovereign mean?
The state of ownership of our own mind and body. For a long time, the sovereign was the word described to explain the authority and power of a king or queen, the sovereign. But now it's time to be the king and queen of our own domain,
I love that.
of our own life scripts. And if you are essentially meant to be sovereign, we are not meant to be beggars and pleasers or manipulators, neither victims nor aggressors. We're meant to enjoy our life, lead our life from this space of inner sovereignty where we know that we are happy to take advice of others, enjoy the teachings of gurus and masters, but ultimately we are sovereign, and that there is a self within us, an invisible truth that impels us to be masters of our own being and our own destiny. So I wrote this book to remind people and encourage them to come back to their sovereign self.
That's beautiful. And in the introduction of the book, Sovereign Self, you state, we humans have accepted a shackled existence. Many of us feel that life is a jail sentence. We disappoint ourselves. We don't necessarily like ourselves. So, Acharya Shunya, what is the illusion that keeps us shackled?
The illusion is that we are only a body, and just like this body needs to eat regularly, it seems like we believe that we're not only looking for food, but we are also forging for relationships, accomplishments, approval, love. We're royal beggars. The illusion is that we are unaware that a great spiritual supreme intelligence has orchestrated our manifestation in the human birth, and we are self-fulfilled and self-fulfilling spirits and beings in the first place with a capital B. And that we need to just look within and begin to manifest what we want to manifest. Instead, we're so lost in the trade of the body and in the trade of the promises and the giving and breaking of hearts and dreams, and we're all just climbing on top of each other like mice trying to leave a sinking ship, and all cluttering and clamoring. But the sovereign one can sit back, breathe, go within, and know that I'm a child of Mother Earth and Father Universe is above me, and I'm a different kind of being, and let me just spend a few moments exploring my own mystery. And when we do that, and when we are even just willing to do that, the right book will show up. The right teacher would be smiling at you. Not the nasty kind of teachers who want to take you for a ride. The true teacher. And even the sunrise and sunset will become teachers. Everything will change. Then the illusion breaks.
That's beautiful. Yeah, when you describe the clamoring to the top, I visualize, and I've talked about this, I think, before in the podcast, is like we set up our society like a pyramid, and we're all clamoring to the top of this ego-based pyramid and thinking that there's not enough resources for us all, and we've created this competitive society where we need to push others down in order to succeed.
Yeah. It's not helping us. And the illusion is that we grow up and we see everybody's clamoring and we begin clamoring too. Without asking why. And do I have another option? And I'm not saying that to wake up means to not enjoy your body or sexuality or the things money buys. I'm just saying, do we have to be so desperate?
Yes. Right. And always seeking externally. Yeah, absolutely. So in the book Sovereign Self, you said it's a comprehensive guide to the sacred texts. You're really making these sacred texts, the Vedas, accessible and practical for those of us who are seeking other knowledge, other wisdom, that we know that there's another way of being. So what is the gift of the ancient Vedas? How can it help us in our modern world today, these ancient teachings?
So these Vedas were the original teachings of very ancient beings, men and women, who walked the path in ancient India. But this was not religion. This was true spirituality. It 10,000 years ago, the Vedas were saying something like, and I'll quote in original Sanskrit, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means the world is a family. They were conceiving the world with all its differences as one family. Or they were saying, I'll again quote in Sanskrit, Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti, which means there really is only one truth, declared the Vedas. There's only one God, one truth, one spiritual essence. It's true that the scholars and knowers of different languages and traditions call it by a different name. So they brought us radically together in the pursuit of that one supreme truth. And they didn't say it's Hindu or Buddhist or Sikh, or, they just said it's one. And we are allowed to call it by different names, different genders. So the Vedas give us the gift back of, breathing freely again and not having to live as per any kind of dogma.
Yeah.
And when I, grew up in this world, I grew up learning the Vedas, but then I didn't find my own people, the Indian people, really aware of what the Vedas mean. They are largely forgotten, or they've been converted into esoteric chanting that everybody likes to listen, just like we like to listen to Buddhist chanting. We don't know what it means. But it's really worth knowing the meaning, and that's how this book came alive, because it teaches us it emboldens us. It gives us our life purpose. Vedas remind us human beings of enjoying everything, our sexuality, our possessions, our goodness, and our blessedness. So they give us permissions to lead a radically whole life, an unashamed life. And the best part is it's thousands of years old. It's meant for all humanity. It's not something I cooked up yesterday and then I wrote a book about it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has people free. I mean, India, anybody who's in spirituality worldwide looks at India as kind of the mother of spirituality. And India gave birth to, yoga, Ayurveda, Tantra, spiritual dancing, meditating. But it's not a geographical India that we have to gush about. It's this spiritual India, and the fountainhead of the spirituality was the Veda. So through the Sovereign Self, I was not only transmitting from my soul what people need to read to be free. I believe every word sets us free. But I was also gently bringing back into the public domain, into the 21st century, through a mainstream publisher, through an important book that's being read and translated worldwide, back to the treasures of the Veda and the gifts of truly being free, sovereign.
Yeah, and in a time, Acharya Shunya, when there's so much angst between different religions, as it were, that you said that the Vedas are conscious ways of living and thinking rather than a religion, and that the contributions made by the rishis, the male seers, and the female seers, the rishikas, the seers are channels of the greater cosmic intelligence, you said, that are formless and nameless, and the wisdom was revealed in the depths of awakened consciousness. Therefore, the Vedas impart the wisdom for the true being and never dogma. And I love that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it comes from this ancient wisdom. It's not something that was concocted recently. It stands the test of time, and it's just this way of being in the world and connecting to your true nature.
Absolutely. The Vedas are the realizations of enlightened beings. Enlightened is beings who have the light. They are not living and crawling in the darkness of their own unconscious, subconscious minds. These are beings known as rishis and rishikas. The male sages were known as rishis and the female rishikas. And they have meditated, contemplated, and it is said that the Vedas they were just seen. They were seen, like the knowledge was just seen. Like, this is how it is. We're not separate. We are one. We may have different bodies, but we're channeling the same self. We may look differently, mate differently, eat differently, but we're really one heart, one love. And so the Vedas chant, Samano mantraha samati samani samanam mansaha chittamesham. May we come together in unison. May we chant with our hearts one, of that one truth. So when the rishis and rishikas were giving us this knowledge, it created a whole revolution in ancient India. But if you go to current India, you won't recognize it. And most Indians will say, oh yeah, we worship the Vedas. But what does that even mean? Do you live the Vedas is the question.
Yes.
And to live the Veda is to not be in bondage of our own desires, our own fantasies, and our own misperceived self-limitations. To live the Veda means to lead a truly bold and a powerful life, a humble life. It doesn't to wane people who are, what's that word? I'm forgetting. The people who are very, very arrogant.
Egotistical or entitled?
Yeah, egotistical and entitled. But we're definitely laying claim to what is ours as great spirit beings that we are.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And you talked about the limitations there, and you mentioned the book that we are imprisoned by false beliefs and personal limitations. So I'd love for you to tell us, as you explained in the book, what is the real power of the mind?
The purpose of the mind is clear. It's meant to help us navigate our manifestation on planet Earth in human body. It wants us to have a good time, known as karma in the Vedas. It's meant for, the mind is supposed to help us feel secure and abundant, known as artha. So even the primitive man and women used to build houses or secure rocks as weapons. So, it's artha, basic stuff that we need. But the mind is also supposed to become a tool of dharma for us. And dharma is not just duty and selflessness and going beyond the ego, but dharma means standing in your power with consciousness. Being able to hold your opinion in the middle of being attacked by naysayers and people who don't want to believe you or who want to question your power. Dharma means standing for what is true. And when you stand for that truth, you connect to the higher truth. So it's our mind that helps us with that. And dharma and the mind is also supposed to be the ultimate subtle spaceship to launch us into the quarry of our true sovereign nature, sovereign self, the spirit, the divine being within us, that which is known as moksha or mukti in Sanskrit or the yogic terminology. So if it is supposed to help us become sexually alive, enjoy an orgasm, to enjoy meeting the god or goddess within, then this mind is really important. Colette, you'll agree. But we've been saying, oh, my mind, I wish I could shoot my mind. Oh, if I could just give Tylenol to my mind. I mean, we have a hard relationship with our own equipment.
Yeah.
We don't know how to use it. And that's why I'm in my book, Sovereign Self. I have the entire part 2. I have 3 parts to it, part 1, part 2, part 3 within that same book. The part 2 is about how to use your mind, how to use your mind to think the way you should think, how to feel the way you want to feel, how to use your mind to use your senses so that you don't eat yourself to death, but have the body that you want. So, you be the master of your own mind because you're the spirit and the mind is a genie. But if we don't know how to use our genie, if we don't know how to talk to our genie and ask for it what we want, then it won't give us what we want. And it's going to give us what it wants. And it's random. If you've ever seen an unhinged mind, Colette, I wonder if it's happened to you. It happens to me sometimes. And then I go, oh, no, not going to allow you to do that. But my mind will go back and forth between my past and my present and my future. It will go here, there, come up with random images, right?
Yes, we talked about that recently in another podcast, how the ego is, a random, jumping all over the place, whereas intuition or inner guidance is more consistent.
There you go. And that inner guidance is really the guidance of a tethered mind, a sovereign mind. Earlier, I was going to call my book Sovereign Mind, Sovereign Self, but then we decided it's just Sovereign Self subsumes a sovereign mind. So definitely the role of the mind is to help us in the world, but then the final purpose of the mind is to help us ask the deeper question, who am I? How come I am in this world? And if I'm in this world, what's the ultimate attitudes with which I have to engage with not just this or that relationship, but all my relationships? And what's my priority relationship with myself or with my significant other or my dad or my mom or my child or my pet, where we get all lost.
So true.
And I wrote this book after I had been lost, so I'm qualified to write this.
You've experienced it.
Oh my.
As we all have, right? It's part of life to go through this, because it's only by experiencing the loss or the sorrow that we can then get to the other side. And you mentioned in the book that the root cause of sorrow or psychological bondage is looking for happiness, wholeness, and fulfillment outside of ourselves. And you talk a lot about Maya, the illusion that conceals the true self. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more on this, please.
So Maya is a Sanskrit word, but it is a thing. It is a thing. It's like a spell that has spread from mind to mind. The moment we are born, when you're a newborn baby, you're laughing, you're lying in your own dirt, and you're like jolly and happy, and you're attracting everything to you because the Maya in your mind is barely a drop. And so you feel so, you are love. You don't doubt your love. You don't doubt others loving you. And that's why every baby is so attractive.
Yeah.
But then as we grow older, very soon, because of living in a conditioned society that lives on the dope called Maya, Maya causes self-forgetfulness. Now, a marigold growing in your garden hasn't forgotten its value, but we have.
Yeah.
And that is due to Maya. It is due to Maya that we who are royal kings and queens get reduced to being beggars, and we live for morsels of affection or approval. Given this situation, Maya can only be known when it's known that, I'm operating under a spell. Like right now, our listeners, their Maya would get revealed and they're like, why am I behaving in this erratic manner when I know better? Because Colette will agree, you and I can confess, we've always had that inner voice that guides us to say, don't make that phone call, don't write that pleading email, don't cook that meal for the person who doesn't treat you well, or don't go and work for a salary where you are not being respected for your skills. We know that. Where's that voice coming from? That's coming from deep within you, from your sovereign self. But due to Maya, we're lost. So it's a matter of like threading through that Maya and then reclaiming that inner voice and its wisdom. We all have it. They don't have to read my book, but my book is for sure a reminder, because a lot of us are fast asleep while driving the car in Maya.
Yeah, and Acharya Shunya, I have to tell you, I made so many notes, which is why I keep quoting you from your book, because as I was reading the book, I made there's so many aha moments. And another one, like you're talking about now, was begging for freedom, recognition, and love from others, and forgetting that it lies within, which is essentially what you're saying about Maya. That really struck me.
Yeah. That Maya reduces us into pathetic creatures who feel forever incomplete.
Yeah.
But I have talked a lot about I am enough, and I've given an I am enough meditation. And for so many times, so many people across the world have told me that they went shopping after meditating on I am enough, and they didn't do impulsive buying or spending money they didn't have. So many people who were compulsive bingers and eaters, or drinkers, they had an alcohol problem, just repeating this mantra, I am enough, and really feeling it in their heart, in their stomach area, wherever they intuitively felt like they needed to lay their hands, made a big difference. And I added all these practices. Colette, I'm from what is known as a grihastha sadhu parampara, or a householder tradition of sages. My grandfather, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, they were all married, they had children, and yet we were teaching these spiritual source texts, the Vedic source texts from India, and being spiritual teachers to thousands. And we all experienced our not enoughness. We all lived within the society that obliges you to say, take on a partner by such and such age. Yeah. You must have a house with a white picket fence by such and such age. You must be driving a car with a certain brand name to really matter. So we also lived in that society in India. India has its own parameters by which you can say you're successful or not. And we had to find our inner success. So we were no less leading a difficult life than a sage walking in the Himalayas alone. We were very much in the trenches of society, finding our inner lotus.
Yeah, which helps you now in disseminating this knowledge, right?
Well, and 99% of my students are householders.
Yeah.
And there's that 1% monk kind of a student who wants to live alone. I have something for them too. But even Krishna, the teacher in the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the most famous Vedic texts, says that it is the householder path that is the path for humanity. And the monastic path is really only for the curious few. And but because it sounds so glamorous, we started glamorizing somebody who goes up a mountain and comes down a mountain. And then we start looking up to them. But what about the person who's living with fierce self-conviction and self-celebration in the middle of a householder existence? And I represent that kind of Vedic teaching in the world today.
Yes, which is beautiful. And like I said, this knowledge and this life lived experience helps you to understand your followers and the people who are reading your books.
Absolutely. Because I need not have talked about it. I need not bring this up in my podcast. I need not talk about any lived experience of not feeling enough to being enough. But then I make it a point to do so, because unless we show our vulnerability, our enlightenment really has no place to go, in my opinion.
Yes. So true. That's a very good point. And you also talked about spiritual bypassing in the book. And if I may quote you from your book, it says, we can't simply put on new shiny clothes over old tattered ones. Atma, the spiritual self hidden within, cannot be superimposed on a cluttered Maya-drunk mind. And please elaborate on that.
Well, we know all about the the swamis and the rinpoches and the priests and the pastors being caught with their pants down, and the gurus and whatnot, right? This is a generation of expose.
Absolutely.
And the reason it's happening is that this deeper kind of books, deeper kind of teachings that the sovereign self represents, which make us do the background work before we can call ourselves a teacher. I got the title of my lineage at age 24, but I took on my first student at age 40.
Wow.
And the reason for that is that we don't just get a bestseller and we go on a bandwagon of becoming enlightened. But in today's world of digital media, where appearances can be deceptive, anybody can be a teacher or a guru, and when thousands are adoring you because you have a way with the word, or your glib marketing or whatever, it's easy to believe or self-deceive yourself as having arrived when we barely started. And again, that's another way the Maya, the spell, kind of confuses us. And we forget that the quest still lies within, and we have to look and take stock of the parts that are not grown within us, the parts that have grown within us. Most of these teachers who were exposed had something truly worthy within them. But there was also something rotting and stinking in the basement that they needed to look at and bring out and deal with it. They didn't. And in this Maya-driven world where there is less deep inner work to be done, and spiritual traditions are also sold and repackaged at a very superficial level, and authors don't write these kind of deep books. They're like, well, let me write a light book so that more people can buy it, versus let me write a deeper book so people can sit with it, actually drop something. I might sell a few lesser copies. So that doesn't happen nowadays, and bypassing is rampant. And it's so easy. The human mind is so fantastic that it so wants to please you that if you want to believe you've arrived, even before you've started on your journey, it can help you do that. It can help you. But I wanted to be worthy of my title at age 24, and I wanted to look at the areas I'm bypassing. I wanted to look and take stock of my own human suffering and my own human ignorance, which is ubiquitous. Just because I was born in a lineage doesn't mean I didn't have my own issues, or I didn't have my own blind-sightedness in certain areas. And I had my own wounds for having lost my parent early, and for having lost, or for growing up in a family where everybody was famous, so you kind of feel insignificant. Right. So I had my own wounds, and I had my own confusions, and I had to come to peace with them. And in the process, I used all of this knowledge. Every word of this book I own. And that makes a difference. That's why, Colette, you found it so gripping. That's what people tell me, that it's like a transmission, because it's not just something I copied from the Bhagavad Gita, opened it, and I wrote a couple of words here. I did that. This all came forth just writing from my own soul.
Yes, and I felt that when I was reading it. I really did. And, you talk there, Acharya Shunya, about teachers have been exposed, or false gurus and so on. And, this is something, unfortunately, that's rife in the communities, the spiritual communities today. Do you have advice for people who are seeking a teacher, or seeking someone to align with, to help them on their journey? And some advice on how to choose the right teacher?
Advice, yes. In fact, I would urge my listeners to just go buy this book, because I have an entire chapter dedicated to how to land on your true teacher. For every false teacher, for every 10 false teachers today, there is one real teacher. And you don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. And that real teacher will want nothing for themselves. They'll just share the truth with you. And they will say, it worked for me, and it will work for you. Probably check it out. And They share for the sheer gladness of their own heart, not because they're so incomplete that they need you to bow to them and kiss their feet, do any of that, like take care of their infantile ego and somehow, brush it up. But then I have given a whole checklist that you might want to look at. And there are also some fantasies that we have, like, this book is my guru. Some people might think sovereign self is their guru. And I think a book is a great tool, but it should lead you to your teachers. It should not, you shouldn't just start practicing worshipping a book, because we know what that does. It leads to the birth of religions and unconscious people who fight and kill each other for their books.
Yes.
You don't want to do that.
No, certainly don't need more of that.
No. They'll say this photo is my guru of some great figure. But I say, if that guru can't talk to you, if you can't send in your questions and receive corrections through some way or the other, a guru guides you, a guru corrects you, a guru says, where are you going? A guru says, are you drunk in Maya? Are you truly thinking? Is your thinking free of the viruses of Maya, conditioning of the society? So a guru has to be living. A guru has to be accessible, if not directly, then somehow through some form where your question gets answered. And a guru has to be humble, and a guru must have transparency in their life. And some common sense things, but it helped for somebody like me to say it, where I have the complete freedom to be the guru that I want to be. And I want it because I am a guru from my lineage.
Yes.
But I thought I don't want to skip over this topic, like kind of take it for granted that I'm the real guru, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to give the back end information on what makes you a guru. And I'm not even a guru, Colette, to everybody who studies with me. To be a guru of someone and to take on somebody as a disciple is a very private and serious matter. We say that, if you take on a student, a disciple in the Vedic tradition, it is said you've taken on their karma.
Oh, wow.
And so true gurus very discerningly take on disciples. They don't en masse 10,000, 30,000, 1 million disciples. Somebody doesn't know what they're doing. You can call that a fan club, but let's not call them spiritual students.
Yes. Indeed.
So in reality, I might have a lot of people call me their guru, but I just have disciples I can count on my hands.
You talk about how Maya can fog our minds. So the more that we purify our minds, the more discernment we will have when choosing a teacher. And so I'd like to talk about now is how do we begin to purify the mind and navigate the journey of letting go of this false self, of this Maya?
How can we let go of that false self?
Yeah.
The false self has no existence except in your ignorant mind.
Okay.
It is a phantom created by our confused and Maya-driven, societally conditioned mind. The false self has everything wrong with it. And it's alone forever, and it feels helpless and limited. But the more you read books like Sovereign Self, honestly, because Sovereign Self leads you to the Vedas. So I want to say, the more you connect with the ultimate truth, unfiltered truth, non-dogmatic truth of the Vedas, albeit via books like the Vedas and the Sovereign Self and other authors who may have written such transparent books. So if you find those kind of books, then the false self will fall away because it never existed. But, it exists in your mind. For example, in Vedas, we have this example of you walking into a room and you shout because you see a snake and you get terrified and, sweat comes out and you almost have a mild heart attack. And the snake is very much sitting there in a corner. But then somebody comes, a friendly figure comes in who we compare to the guru. and he brings a lamp near there, or a lit candle, like a flame, light, which means knowledge. And it says, look, there is no snake here. It's only a rope coiled up. But until you knew it was a rope, you believed it was a snake, and it could give you a heart attack. So until we know who we are, sovereign beings, the self, until then the world does give us many heart attacks.
Yes.
But once we know who we are, then the same world becomes a playground.
Beautiful. And you said that, self-knowledge is a way to navigate this path as well in the book. You said self-knowledge arises from discrimination between Atman, the self, and Jiva, the false self.
Yeah. For example, my body has a genetic condition because of which walking and moving is difficult. And if I totally believe in my false self, then I have a genetic condition that will not allow me to walk, and I have to sit in a wheelchair, and I must take some painkillers even if they want to kill my kidneys. And, that story goes on and on. Or when I look at, in Vedas, that's the interesting thing, that even the body, which keeps changing, anything that keeps changing, the mind, our thoughts, are all kind of false. False, not as in wrong, false as in they're not the ultimate truth. But the observer within us is the ultimate truth that can see all these changes. So I have a true self too. And when I'm walking and I can't walk for a moment, my knee gets arrested. I just look at it and I go, really? And I start walking again, Colette. So the more I become aware of two parts of me, something that is blaringly true, and it is healthy and whole and amazing and beautiful and radiant, and something that's trying hard but doesn't just get it. I can have compassion for my false self. I can help it, but I don't have to believe it entirely. Or if my little mind sneaks up and says, Colette's going to ask us those questions, what are we going to answer them, right? Those moments of doubts. Because I know they're not real in the ultimate sense. I don't believe them. So there's a difference, right? So I have a discernment within me of the parts that I want to believe and the parts that I want to just humor or be compassionate about.
Yeah, and it's beautiful that, to look at them in that compassionate way, not to try to push them down or spiritually bypass over those thoughts, but look at it compassionately and understand that it's coming from a place of fear, whereas Atman, the self, is the boundless one, as you said in the book.
Yeah, it's fearless.
Yes. Yeah.
And Colette, even the most servile person on the planet who's put in chains, who's treated, who has no country, no pride, no nothing, even that person can growl back at times and say, enough, don't treat me like this. I'll appeal to the United Nations, UNESCO and stuff like that. So every human being has a part of them that growls back. And that comes from the fearless, boundless self, Atman. That's why I have another book coming out. I hope I'll come back on your podcast with it. It's called Roar Like the Goddess.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So, I love the title.
So I want to say there is a goddess part in each one of us that's roaring.
Beautiful. Yeah, and we see that through manifestation, whether it's physical or mental, that we get those messages that there's something else wanting to come out. Wanting to express itself, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful. So in this book, as you said, it's in 3 parts.
Well, it's really one book, but it has 3 sections.
Right. So how would you suggest, first of all, I really encourage people to get this book. It is amazing. And I have taken so many notes and it's so many aha moments for me. And I feel it's a really great guide as we continue on our journey and try to navigate our spiritual journey. So how do you suggest, Acharya Shunya, that people read this book and approach the practices?
I would really love it if my readers could read the book methodically, systematically, from the beginning to the end. because each concept builds on another.
Yes, it does.
And by the end of the book, you feel like you've gone through a whole retreat with me. You've gone through a transformation. That's what people are telling me. And the first part of the book, section A, is about defining the problem. What's going on? Why are you feeling so miserable despite having opportunities? And if you do have opportunities, are you really benefiting from them? And if you don't have opportunities, did you sign up for such a life?
Yeah.
Or do you have opportunities waiting in the wing? What's going on here? Why are you not feeling sovereign? Why are you not feeling happy? So when you read through it, you have a lot of aha moments, as Colette says, because you then also realize you're not just doing it to yourself. It's part of a universal setup to be a little lost so that we can find ourselves. This is a spiritual workshop, this planet.
Yes.
So you'll hear about Maya and how it's affecting you, and you can decode that in you. The second part is around, okay, so this is where you're at. How can you use your mind, which is a supersonic instrument of the divine, in the right way? How can you be a master of your mind, a master of your senses, a master of your thoughts? And how can you give yourself orders? And this is very ancient teachings, but I've been using them in my own life and teaching them to students for the last 2 decades before writing this book. It changes life, these kind of teachings. Somebody wrote back to me that your entire book is like a TED Talk after another TED Talk of an seeker. It's like real stuff.
And so rich. That's why I had to take so many notes. It's like every line I have to go back and reread, and it's so rich and deep.
Thank you. Yeah. And so it can be a little workbook for you. Start a little notebook next to yourself. I'm sure Colette did that too.
Yes.
Take notes within the book and make your own little maps or drawings and all of that. And the third part is really fun. It's all about how to now live as a sovereign being whose mind is listening to you inside relationships, how to have boundaries, how to even walk out of a relationship that's not serving you in a sovereign manner. So it's much more practical. It teaches an ancient 5,000-year-old communication protocol, a 4-part communication protocol of how to actually talk when you want to, be in a powerful place. So all the concepts are related. And after the first chapter or so, it does become easier and easier. The first one is only because it's new knowledge. But at the same time, somebody wrote to me from a village in Scotland, and I went looking for that village, and it has a total of 32 houses in that village.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that beautiful?
And that person says, right? And that person says sovereign self is helping them in their life.
Wow.
So it's like something so remote. And how did the book reach them? I'm sure it's, my publishers are making sure it's everywhere. But to get a letter from this remote village in Scotland, then I looked them up. I was like, gosh, do you have a bed and breakfast? I want to come over.
But this is the beautiful thing. And you're breaking down this wisdom of the Vedas into practical ways and breaking it down so that we can understand it in our modern life.
It was definitely a calling from within. And I'm glad I took the time. It took me 3 years to write it. But I feel tremendously light after writing it.
Well, you can
feel like I've done something worthy.
Yeah.
I like to come back to the planet because this book is there to remind me.
Yes. And, you can see that you put so much into this book, and you have some great practices and meditations and affirmations and so on as well.
It had to be. The knowledge has to come alive. It can't just be an academic discussion. That bores me.
Absolutely, yeah.
I always like to bring the knowledge alive. And because it's coming from my own home, from my own bedroom, from my own heart, So I think most people find something in it. There's also the academic in terms of the footnotes, and I've always indicated where I'm borrowing a certain concept from. So there is also a lot of author's honesty there. I'm not pretending. I'm not misappropriating the knowledge like that's a current trend of authors to do. Just, borrow from ancient traditions and make it their own. I don't like that. So I always things in apostrophe and add a little footnote.
You obviously have great integrity, and that's what, shines through, and humility.
Well, people get a flavor of what was in the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita because I'm kind of their champion. I'm so grateful to those texts ultimately because they gave me a chance in life.
Yeah, and you share that story. Guru, your Baba.
Yeah, my Baba. Yes.
Yeah, your grandfather in your book, The Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, you share those beautiful stories with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Acharya Shunya, I could talk to you forever, but it has been such a wonderful experience chatting with you. And always, I just feel you have so much to share with the world and from your perspective, which is very special.
Thank you, Colette. Always special to talk to you.
Thank you. And so I think it would be good to finish up, Acharya Shunya, telling people where they can find your book, Sovereign Self, find out more about you and your other offerings.
Well, I invite everyone to visit my website, which is really my name, acharyashunya.com. You can also go to awakenedself.com because the name of my foundation is Awakened Self Foundation. These books are available through my website, and also if you go on pretty much any bookstore, any major bookstore, or online through Amazon, everywhere, just put in my name or the names of the book, and they shall show up. Please leave a review after you've read the book would be my request.
Absolutely. That means we can spread this wisdom more and make this world a better place, that everybody is thriving and in their true self. So there's benefit for all of us to do that.
Exactly. Thank you, Colette.
Acharya Shunya, thank you so much. I hope you come back with your next book. Tell me the title of it again.
Roar Like a Goddess.
Okay, well, we're going to look out for that one, and I look forward to chatting with you on that when it's published. Do you have any idea when that's coming out?
Yes, it is coming out on September 7th next year.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay,
also by Sounds True. And it is we use the goddess archetypes, the Hindu goddesses, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and they become feminist archetypes in my writing. And they speak up against patriarchy and misogyny and tell women worldwide to stand in their power.
Oh my goodness. Now you're speaking my language there. I love that. So that's going to come out September 2022.
2022.
Okay,
yes.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll definitely have you back for that. That sounds fantastic. Acharya Shunya, thank you so much for everything you are contributing to this world, and it's a better place for having you in it. And I look forward to our next conversation, and take good care of yourself.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Acharya Shunya, and please check out all those links in the show notes to acharyashunya.com and awakenself.com. And you can purchase the book Sovereign Self on the website or wherever books are sold. If you would like to know more about my online services, please click on the link in the show notes or visit elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And there you'll find my online consultations, digestive reset cleanse, and I have a group seasonal cleanse starting October 1st, 2021. I also have lots of educational programs there, so check that out. If you think that this episode would be helpful to family or friends, I'd appreciate it if you would share it with them. If you haven't already subscribed or followed the podcast, please do so, and perhaps leave a rating and review if you feel so called. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and so long go full. Bye for now.